Okay, well, the quarterly commission meeting, we'll call the meeting to order. And looking at the agenda, I guess we'll see if there's any comments to be made by the public.
Judge, I believe one person has signed up to comment, and I'll ask Ryan to make that available and then check if there's any other individuals. Ryan?
Yes, give me 1 second, please. The individual who I believe we have to provide public comment this morning, is Victoria Blanco. I'll check the attendees list to see if she's there.
No, I'm not seeing her, Ryan. I will say, if Victoria, if you're on and your name would be something different, if you could use the raise hand function in Zoom, we can turn on your mic.
And to the public, if anyone would wish to comment, please use the raise hand function and we'll provide that information to the chair.
Thank you, Christy. I will note Victoria was present earlier. So if Christy or I see, we can raise that to you, Mark, and Judge Tucker, and you can choose when the time is appropriate.
Great. Thank you. Judge, back to you.
Very well. Okay, that having been done, I presume the minutes have been reviewed. Is there any comment or information, anything on the minutes?
I'll make a motion they be approved. Craig Galley.
Is there a
I'll second that motion.
All right, Dave, second by DA Sunday. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the minutes will be received as they are. Let's move to the executive and administrative financial reports.
All right, Judge, thank you. And good morning, good morning, everyone. I'll quickly go through the materials. You should have all received a packet of materials that's, I think we listed as the sort of the summary or the commission meeting materials, and then a separate supplement packet. So I'll generally be working with the highlights section and going through the agenda that way, but there are supplemental materials available, and to the degree that's necessary, I'll give you a page number. So first, regarding commission membership, many of you may recall that the commission's enabling legislation was updated, and there was a reorganization of the commission on October 1st, 2019. And so for the most part, all commission members, or the terms of all commission members, started on October 1st, 2019, and they are 2-year terms. So they will expire the end of September of this year. I think there was one appointment that was delayed, and so there's a slight delay, but I think less than a month for one of the members. In any case, the commission has a policy under its bylaws that prior to the timing of the reappointment for a position, that I am required to provide to the appointing authority the attendance of the member during the past 2-year period, and provide that to the appointing authority so that the appointing authority can act on this prior to the expiration of the term. So with that in mind, I've asked Kathy to prepare attendance information for all members following this meeting. And then I will share that with you. We will also include any participation in public hearings and participation in committees of the commission. And you'll have a chance to review that. I will then send it to the appointing authority, and hopefully we will have appointments by the September meeting so that we will have all that taken care of before the expiration of terms. If there's no action by the appointing authority, the statute provides that members continue to serve until replaced. And so all appointments remain valid beyond September 30th, October 1st, unless a new appointment takes place. So I just wanted to remind everyone of the process, and that process will start shortly after this commission meeting. With that, I wanted to turn to ex officio agency updates, whether anyone from the Department of Corrections or the Pennsylvania Parole Board are present and would wish to comment. Ryan, do you see any hands raised or?
No, I do not.
Okay, then I'll move on. Next is the executive director's report. On the staff side, I'm sad to report that Dr. Eric Milzik will be leaving us. Actually, tomorrow will be his last day. Eric has been an incredible resource, a really productive individual, really helpful in managing our research and data analysis unit. He's done a lot of work in a short period of time to really help us, and I just wanted to thank him and to wish him well as he moves on to his next career move. As an interim manager in that unit, we've asked Brett Miller to serve in that capacity, and we will be posting the position in the near future. And so we look forward to seeing the candidates that step up and try to fill that position as soon as possible. In speaking of posted positions, we have recently hired or offered 2 positions. So I'm happy that we filled 2 vacant positions. One, Christy mentioned during the work session that dealt with an analyst in her unit that deals with application and information technology. And the other, an individual who's an analyst with Eric, or in Eric's unit, as a research analyst in research and data analysis unit. We have 2 vacancies in those units as well. So 2 more analyst positions that are vacant, 1 in each of those units. So those are or will be posted soon, and we will be conducting interviews and hope to fill those positions soon. And then, as I mentioned, with Eric's resignation, we will be posting his position as well. So there's been a little bit of turnover. In 2 of these cases, there are new positions that we have on board. So we're really happy to keep moving this along. But that moves to the next topic, which is the diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have been trying for more than a year now to be very forward in our efforts to address and consider diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether it's in the guidelines or in our practices or in staff that we have working for the commission or interns that we bring on board. So we've been very focused on that. As you recall, the commission approved the posting of a postdoctoral scholar position that focuses on racial disparity and other types of issues. And we're happy that we'll have an individual join us soon, and Matt can talk about that a little later. But we also have really tried, when we've been posting these positions, to work with Penn State Human Resources, to work with all of you, and to work with our new partners on the academic review panel to really help us try to find candidates that are minorities or other individuals that can expand the diversity of our staff. We have not been particularly successful, but it's one of those things we keep working at. During this last round of postings, we sent solicitations to several listservs and other services that target individuals of color and individuals that have not been in the typical sort of candidate pool, so that we can try to expand and address diversity issues. And we'll continue those efforts. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I think one thing that we are trying to do, and we hope will be helpful in terms of diversity, is thinking more broadly about how people are employed by the commission. I think it's one of those lessons learned from COVID that there's a lot of things that you can do remotely with the right technology and with the right standards in place. And we've been incredibly productive and effective during the past year and a half with staff primarily working remotely. And I think that provides an opportunity in terms of diverse hiring too. That if relocation is an issue, if working out of State College or out of Harrisburg is a limitation, maybe there's some opportunities by thinking about some of these hires in terms of some kind of hybrid or remote work. So we're doing what we can to try to really stay engaged in thinking about these issues and giving it a priority. But we need your help too. We need, every time we post a position, we send it to you and hope that you use your contacts to, increase the pool that we're looking at. And as I said, we've added new partners to try to help us do that as well. And we'll continue to pursue that with the university and with these other partners we have. So that's to some degree the update on both the COVID response and the diversity, equity, and inclusion. The final thing I'll mention, and this is back to COVID, is that both in terms of staff work and in terms of the commission, I think we're emerging, to what may be a new normal in terms of how we conduct meetings and how we do our work. And so we are moving away from totally remote operations. And I think we're moving more towards a blended or a hybrid approach to what we're doing. So from a staff point of view, we are surveying staff right now to get a better understanding of what type of work setting works best for individuals. Are there concerns about COVID? Are there concerns about work settings and things like that we have to address? But more importantly, how can we strike the right balance where we're taking full advantage of some great staff that we've hired and that we have working for the commission, and have a good work-life balance kind of stuff going on, that if people want to work in at least partly in a remote setting, that we can figure out a way to take advantage of that to make that happen. So I just wanted to mention on the staff side, we'll be starting to sort of move back into offices over the second half of the year. But I don't think it's going to be everyone has to be in the office all the time. I think we're going to look for ways to find the best balance for each individual and for the commission as a whole. And I think that extends to the commission meetings as well and our work with commission members. Judge Bernstein has long been an advocate of going digital with our meeting materials, and we were forced to do that the last year or so. I think that's a lesson learned that we can take forward, that we think in terms of digital meeting materials, saving trees from her point of view, but the idea that we'll produce this information, we'll make it available online, we'll provide it to commission members, and we'll do it in a way that we hope you can work through the materials electronically, but that we can send them to you, and then you can print off any of the information you think is helpful, and we will not produce paper copies. So even if you're in person, bring your laptop, you'll have the stuff, or a notebook, or print off materials that you feel are necessary. I think that's just one accommodation or one lesson learned that we can take forward. Certainly, having commission meetings available by Zoom webinar and live stream is a great advance. It gives greater access to the commission, to the public, and we want to continue that. So even if we go back to sort of traditional meeting formats, we will retain the Zoom webinar presence and the live scan presence, and making a material that's available online so that people don't have to travel, even if they want to participate in the commission meeting. But But there is a lot of benefit in members getting together. And we know that's especially true when we're going through very difficult and tedious things like reviewing or building guidelines. And so the chair and vice chair and Judge Tucker collectively thought it would be really helpful when we think about sort of initiating the review of proposed guideline changes to have an actual meeting. And so that's why we are planning this full, one-day meeting in Harrisburg in the Irvis office building. So right down from our Harrisburg office. And we can make accommodations for all members to be present, selected staff to be present, and that we would also live stream or Zoom webinar the meeting so that it's in effect a hybrid meeting. And then as we move forward to our regular quarterly meetings, I think the expectation is that the September meeting will be an in-person meeting and will include a dinner meeting the night before, because it's a great opportunity to discuss and work through some of these policy issues and provide some time for members to discuss sort of absent the table and reach maybe resolution on some issues. So I think these are all positives. So I'd expect that come September, we will have in-person meeting with a dinner meeting the night before, but we will make sure that the meetings are available remotely for those who want to participate from afar. So that's a lot of information. I just wanted to make sure we captured that and put those expectations out there. If there's no comments, I'll just move forward with the budget information.
Mark, I have a brief comment. If you
Yes,
could just perhaps share with the balance of the commission how you shared the information with the academic panel. I forget the term that you used, but it was some type of digital box where we can go in and see information without printing hundreds or tens of pages.
That's right, Judge. Thank you. And we've started to do that with the commission as well. But anytime, let's talk about the academic review panel. As the judge noted, for that panel, and we had individuals from across the country involved, we established, in effect, a special web page just for them. And we archived all of the material from all the meetings there, including the recordings of all of the meetings, so that individuals could go into that place, they could look at the meeting they wanted, they could watch the meeting, they could obtain all the materials that we used during the meeting. And it was just a really nice archive of that. I think Kathy may have given you all a link to that. And if not, I'll make sure that she does so that you all have a link to that site, which has a lot of information from the efforts that were underway to sort of build the proposal that we highlighted today. But we can also do that, and we'll continue to do that for our commission meeting materials, so that all members can go to that site, can not only see the recording of the meeting if they missed the meeting, but can also have access to all the materials. And when you have access to the materials, you can always print them off if that's helpful to you, or you can download them to a tablet or some device to bring to the meeting with you. Again, we want to sort of pick up on the hygiene things that we've learned over the last year or two, but we also, I think it gets to the issue of just when things are digital, let's take full advantage of that. It's fewer resources we have to use, it's a more efficient process, and it makes it available to all of you. And then separately, we can then extract from that information that we do want to make sure the public has access to. And that ends up being most of the material we have in those archives. So you'll see that as time goes on, we make available on our public website links to recordings, either through our YouTube channel or otherwise, and also link to a lot of those materials that we just post on our website. We've created on the public website a special page just on this effort we've been at since 2014 on revising the guidelines. So you'll find sort of at a high level a bunch of the documents that we talked about this morning including the most recent report about the activities of the academic review panel.
Thanks, Mark. If you could,
You
I
bet.
guess we can proceed on to the financial issues.
Okay, great. So you'll see on the agenda that the first item in terms of financial issues is the financial audit, the 2019-2020 financial audit. And going back many years, the commission had a review by the General Assembly of our operations. And one of the suggestions at that time was that the commission contract each year for a financial audit. And the reason for that independent audit is that the way the commission operates, we sort of fall outside of traditional boundaries of financial auditing. So we're a legislative agency, but we don't do our payroll through the General Assembly. So we sort of fall outside of the traditional audit for the General Assembly. We're an entity at Penn State where we do have our payroll, but we have plenty of expenses and other operations outside of Penn State. And so we don't fall neatly under the Penn State audit. And then we often have independent grants that don't fall into either of those categories. And so it's important that the commission have access to information about our operations and the financial dealings of the commission through an independent set of eyes. And so for many years now, we've been doing this financial audit annually. And I think, some good takeaways from the audit. So what you have in your materials, and I believe it's starting at page 6 of the supplemental materials, is the financial audit that was recently completed. No findings, but some recommendations about improved practices. So we are asking for the commission to accept or approve the audit, and then we'll act on some of the actionable items that they recommend. So I guess we would need just a motion to approve the receipt of the audit.
I'll move to.
Is there a motion? Is there a motion?
Professor Rago made a motion.
Right. Move to
Okay.
approve the audit as presented.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a second though.
I'll second that motion.
Very well. Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, then the motion carries.
Great, thank you. The next item is the current operating budget. We're coming to the end of the current fiscal year. We've moved around some funds, and at the end of the fiscal year, we'll move all of the remaining funds into reserve that we will then use for to cover costs of the new employees and things like that. So we're just asking for an approval of the existing operating budget. I believe the materials start at page 26 of the supplemental. Judge, you're muted.
Yeah. Are there any questions regarding the operating budget? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any second?
Second, Judge Daly.
All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, hearing no opposed, the motion carries.
Thank you. The next issue is the proposed operating budget for the new fiscal year, for fiscal year 21-22. Now, the General Assembly has not enacted the state budget yet, but we anticipate, or we're hoping, that we will receive a flat appropriation, an appropriation equal to that we received this year. And we have built the budget based on that expectation, and with the understanding that we would be using some of the reserve funds, some of the funds that are carried over from this year, to fill the void of the JRI funds that we are not receiving this year. So we have built a budget based on the appropriation plus, in effect, $400,000 of reserves to cover the $400,000 gap in not receiving JRI funds. So that is the operating budget. We look for approval of this proposed budget to start operations July 1st. And then if we would find that our appropriation is different than what we built the budget around, at the September meeting, we would bring back an amendment to the proposed budget for the balance of the fiscal year. So a motion to approve the proposed fiscal year 21-22 operating budget.
Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Any?
Second.
All right. All in favor of the proposed 21-22 budget? All in
Aye.
favor? Aye.
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 Are there any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing no opposition, the motion will carry.
Great, thank you. The next issue with the approval of the proposed budget, then the next step is to approve specific expenses under that budget. As many of you know, we have built an affiliation with Penn State, which means that although we have as a legislative agency, we have our appropriation through the General Assembly to fund our operations. Long ago, the commission entered into a memorandum of understanding with Penn State that allows us to hire and manage staff through Penn State. And so many of the operations of the commission are done through Penn State, through that infrastructure, HR, payroll, all of that other kind of stuff, operating expenses. And then monthly, the commission receives an invoice from Penn State that we use our state funds to pay. And so that's the mechanism we have in place. So at the start of each fiscal year, we submit, or we have approved, what we call a service purchase contract, which identifies the maximum amount of money we would be able to spend during the year to fulfill this Penn State arrangement. And we don't pay any money to Penn State up front based on the service purchase contract. It just authorizes us to use the state appropriation to pay off invoices for services each month. And so the first service purchase contract is the one with Penn State. It's in the amount of $2,381,206, which is what we project will be the expenses for payroll and operating expenses through Penn State for the upcoming fiscal year. But again, we will not pay anything except upon an invoice. We'll get an invoice monthly for actual expenses, and then that will be deducted from this service purchase contract. So I need a motion to approve the service purchase contract with Penn State in the amount of $2,381,206.
Are there any questions to Mark regarding that? Is there a motion to support his request?
I'll make the motion to approve, Judge Daly.
Just a second, please.
Second, Judge.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you. The next service purchase contract deals with legal services, so I'll turn to Professor Mystic.
Judge Tucker, let the record reflect that I have left this meeting prior to the consideration of this next item. I will return once I receive a text that it is appropriate.
And who will send the text?
I think Ryan
I
generally.
think Ryan will send the text after a vote.
Thank
That
you.
is, depending on the vote.
Yeah. Just didn't want to leave you out there.
Maybe I'll see you again. Maybe I won't, Judge.
Thank you, Professor Mystic.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so with Professor Mystic absenting himself, the next service purchase contract is for legal services in the amount of $40,000 for Professor Joseph Sabino Mystic. As many of you know, Professor Mystic is in effect on retainer with the commission. The way it has been structured for many years now is that we have a flat service purchase contract, in this case for $40,000, where he is paid quarterly $10,000. His services include a review of meeting materials, general assistance to myself and to staff and to the commission on all legal matters. And if the commission is engaged in any kind of litigation, he makes a determination about whether that litigation or the work for that is part of his general service contract, or whether it requires additional services in which he brings that to the commission for consideration separately. So he has been extremely helpful in dealing with a number of ongoing matters of litigation. Fortunately, none of them have been lately have been very involved, and we have not needed separate counsel. But this has been a worthwhile thing, and I certainly, from a staff point of view, support the continuation of the contract with Professor Mystic. So the motion would be for approval of a service purchase contract with Professor Joseph Sabino Mystic in the amount of $40,000 to provide legal services to the commission for fiscal year 2021.
Are there any questions regarding this service contract? Hearing no response, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion, Judge.
All right, DA Sunday, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Judge Mariska. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion will carry.
Great. Now, Judge, it's your decision if we contact Professor Mystic right away or let him, hang out there for a while.
Let's give him another 30 seconds. No, let's let him in.
All right, Ryan. Thank you. We'll move to the next matter.
Yes.
As you know, we have a memorandum of understanding with Penn State, and part of that is a research partnership. And through the research partnership, we agree to provide funding to support faculty, students, to work with the commission. And these are on projects the commission identifies to support our legislative mandates for research and evaluation and data management, other things like that. So we do, separate from what we're going to talk about in a minute, we have an obligation to Penn State where we have a research partnership and we have access to students and to faculty, and that's been wonderful. Separate from that, the commission looks for opportunities to partner with other academic institutions. And one great example of that has recently been the Academic Review Panel, where we really try to connect with other schools and resources. And if you recall from this morning's meeting, we benefited a lot, free of charge, to a lot of work by faculty and students at Carnegie Mellon University in helping us to look at risk assessment and prior record score and recidivism, and with faculty and students at Drexel Law to help us think about lapsing provisions and other provisions with prior record score. And those were, free of charge. But we also have opportunities to connect with other institutions and with other students. And sometimes that involves providing, modest amount of funding to support a service purchase contract for summer internships. So we have 3 interns that we are bringing on board for the summer for some really great projects And these involve modest payments for their work, but they're all producing products for us, which we think will be really helpful. In your materials, you'll see that there are 3 students identified. Cassie Di Benedenti from Duquesne University, Gabby Lipschitz from Villanova University School of Law, and Camille Mitchell from Temple University. And I think 2 of these will be working closely with Diane, Dr. Shoup at the out of the Harrisburg office, and the 3rd will be working with staff at the University Park office. And so you'll see that we have 3 service purchase contracts for Cassie in the amount of $1,440. And these are caps. These are maximum, but it's based on an hourly rate and the number of hours we anticipate they'd be working for us through the summer or into the fall. For Gabby, who is a law school student, $5,000, and for Camille, $2,400. And so I think we can handle these collectively as approval of service purchase contracts for student interns outside of our PSU research partnership. And so we'd look for a motion to that effect.
Are there any questions regarding this issue? Mark, I have one question. What was the amount of the first one?
The first one for Cassie from
Yeah.
Duquesne University is $1,440.
Okay, thank you.
And then Gabby for $5,000 and Camille for $2,400.
2,400, got it. Thank you. All right. All right, is there a motion?
Moved. Judge
Senator
Dowling.
Street,
Second? Anyone?
Second, Judge.
Rego.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, are there any opposed? Hearing nothing, the motion carries.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to Matt now to provide a deputy director's report.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark. As Mark just referenced, we have the memorandum of understanding with Penn State University and our continuing partnership with Penn State, but also with other universities across the Commonwealth. And so I'd just like to provide a brief summary of some of the recent activities related to the Penn State memorandum of understanding and some of these partnerships. Periodically, we receive research proposals from members of the Criminal Justice Research Center at Penn State University for what they call seed funding. And the seed funding is a small amount of money that allows the professors to take a course release to do some preliminary research that will ultimately lead, hopefully, to a larger grant, like $1 million with a national or federal organization. And so this past spring, we received a proposal of that type from Professors Wilcox, Steffensmeyer, and then the 3rd member of that team is our current graduate, or I'm sorry, postdoctoral scholar, Miranda Galvin. And that project, and when we make our assessments of whether or not to fund that through the memorandum of understanding, is exactly what Mark referred to is really the value added back to the commission. And we thought this project, which is looking at the use and effectiveness of rehabilitation interventions for justice-involved persons in rural counties with cases involving opioids and methamphetamines, would really add value to our understanding of different sentences that are imposed, especially in these rural jurisdictions. So our role, beyond providing a very nominal amount of money for this startup project, is we will be partnering with them as well in providing commission data and working with the Penn State Police to provide rap sheet data so they can look at issues of recidivism for these individuals. Similarly, we received an additional proposal from a 4th year graduate student at Penn State University who was interested in a project looking at the attrition of drug cases through the system from filing all the way through disposition and sentencing. And so we are working and partnering with the Penn State student on this project. Again, we'll be providing data, but also for this supervision and insights to his project, partnering with Brett Miller, specifically our new interim director of the Research and Data Analysis Unit. Also through this partnership, we are funding an additional intern for the summer. Last summer, we welcomed our first Masters of Public Policy student from Penn State University. That project and that partnership worked out really well for both for the Penn State program, for the student, and for the commission. And so we are welcoming Zach Chamberlain as our second Masters of Public Policy student. And that program requires 30 hours a week for 10 weeks, so 300 hours. And Zach will be working directly with me, but also working with a number of senior staff on a variety of projects. And Zach is actually attending to the commission meeting today as part of his assignment. As well, through the partnership, I want to highlight a couple more things. One is we have graduate students who work with us during the summer as well as during the semesters. We are currently engaged with 2 graduate students, but I want to just showcase the value of some of those efforts. In this academic review panel, we've done a lot of work looking at racial disparities as well as gender disparities, but really trying to understand the current prior record score. And one of our graduate students, Jordan Zvankovich, who's a 5th-year graduate student, was instrumental in many of those analyses and was a big help as we continue to rethink, especially on the prior record score. We also have Emerson Waite with us as a graduate student who's helping us with a number of projects, specifically some of the advanced work for evaluations of the domestic violence pretrial risk assessment. And then we have 2 postdocs. Mark mentioned we'll have a new postdoc of racial and ethnic disparities, postdoctoral sentencing fellow or something like that title. And that's an individual named Catherine Strange. And Catherine just finished her PhD at the University of Cincinnati, actually this month or last month, recently, and has moved here to State College, and looking forward to working with her. She's going to be starting in August. And she has specialty in implementing risk and needs assessments, as well as evaluating those tools, but also in investigating and examining racial disparities in the criminal justice system, especially sentencing practices in guideline states. Our other postdoctoral scholar is Miranda Galvin, who has been with us for 2 years. She'll be starting her 3rd year. And I also want to showcase some of her work, and I think it also the partnership possibilities. So on our academic review panel is Dr. Megan Kurlichek, who is at the Criminal Justice Research Center, working closely with Dr. Galvin and myself. We really dug in deep into the issue of juvenile adjudications and their impact on prior record score. So not only were we able to leverage the expertise of the postdoctoral fellow, but we were also able to work with a very distinguished faculty member who's an expert in the area of juvenile justice. So that has worked out great. And then just briefly on the student internships, as Mark mentioned, we're welcoming 3 interns this summer, in addition to Zach Chamberlain, our MPP student. So briefly, Camille Mitchell from Temple University is going to be working with Diane. One of her main projects is to look at youthful offenders 18 to 25 and begin to think about, should they be treated somewhat differently, or how should the system accommodate those individuals? Cassie from Duquesne University is also going to be working with Diane on offenders who max out. And then finally, Gabby is just completed her 2nd year of law school at Villanova University. I'll be working with her and Professor Chanenson on a project where she's looking at risk, needs, and responsivity as it relates to problem-solving courts, and exploring the possibility of the opportunities to think about how we might make problem-solving courts or add this to the information related to risk, needs, and responsivity into the guidelines. So that will be an ongoing project that will run through the fall, and she'll be working with 3 jurisdictions close to Philadelphia area. Finally, I just want to provide a short update on where we are with the website redesign. At our last meeting, I mentioned or had hoped that we would be able to demo the new website at this June meeting. We are continuing to work with Liberal Arts Information Technology Unit to refine and update the page. I want to go on the record and thank them and Penn State for providing the resources for that redesign and the work they are doing. They provided a phenomenal first draft. Myself and Christy Bundro, the unit manager of the Information Technology and Applications Unit, have been reviewing and working on multiple iterations just to make sure that we have a really solid foundation before we roll that out. We're really excited about a lot of the new features, which will include calendaring functions. And as I've noted in the past, there's been a pretty strong bifurcation of this new model between recent or active materials and more archival materials. But we do not want that archival material to be lost. We certainly want it accessible. But currently our page has a blend of recent and archival without highlighting some of the more salient issues, but making, of course, that's still a repository of all actions and activities of the commission, reports, interim reports, et cetera. So we look forward to hopefully being able to share that, a live version of this website with you at the next meeting. And this is, again, just a preliminary mock-up that you've seen in the past. So happy to entertain any questions about the partnership or the website redesign, and then I'll turn it back to Mark.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt. And Judge, I think that concludes the executive, administrative, and financial issues.
All right, very well. Okay, we'll move on then.
Looks like application and information technology. I think that's Christy Bundro.
Thanks, Mark. So I only have a few updates to report on for the applications and information technology unit. As I mentioned in the policy meeting earlier, we are adding 2 staff positions, a business systems analyst and a programmer analyst. Both of these positions will support our efforts to maintain the current SGS Web application and will also play key roles in the development of the next generation of SGS Web. We have filled the business systems analyst position. Tim Wilson will be joining the team in July. And hopefully we'll be able to start interviews for the programmer in the next couple of weeks. As far as SGS Web updates, we're currently wrapping up a number of changes to SGS Web. Most of these I discussed in the last commission meeting, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. We implemented the functionality for probation guidelines, short sentence parole, and state reentry supervision. We also made a change related to mandatory probation for certain sexual offenders and revised the application to support the new version of the JNet court case event request reply web service. Say that fast. Unit staff have completed the development work for these changes, and testing is currently underway by the Education Outreach Unit. Their review of the changes is critical to ensuring that we've implemented the changes correctly and that they make sense from the user's perspective and based on the related policy. So we really appreciate their assistance with that. The changes will be deployed to SGS Web production whenever their testing is completed and we have addressed any issues that they discover. We also spoke about the SGS Web Next Gen initiative this morning. So right now there's a lot of planning and strategizing going on, but unit staff are also currently researching modern web technology tools, patterns, and best practices. We're working toward defining an architecture that will hopefully provide a much more intuitive user interface, will allow us to automate some of the data entry where possible, and allow us to kind of more efficiently scale and maintain the application as needed for policy changes. Additional unit efforts include, Matt just mentioned the PCS website redesign. So we've been working with Penn State Liberal Arts IT on that, and also working with the research data analytics team on replacing SAS BI with Power BI. That is all I have. So I will turn it back over to Judge Tucker. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, the research and data analysis. Dr.
All
Mosley.
right. Thanks very much. So we reported at the prior commission meeting that the research and data analysis unit has completed all 4 of the modules in the PCCD projections grant. And that lets us project DOC prison population as well as various other types of impact analyses. And like at the last commission meeting, we're continuing to work to improve these models and their functionality by adding various parameters and variables we can use to help filter the data and allow more control over what we're projecting. And through these additions, we'll be able to break down the results by county and demographic information, as well as some of the more detailed offense categories. Part of this is also plans to validate the model and the data further, and optimizing the output better through more regular reports, charts, and other data visualizations. You can find a copy of our improvement timeline in the supplemental materials on page 52. Similar to how Mark and Matt mentioned before, the last meeting of the academic review panel was convened by Judge Tucker, and our research staff were able to provide continued data analysis for the consideration of the panel, mostly focused on calculation of the prior record score. Again, as part of these efforts for the pretrial domestic violence project, we're continuing to consider how to properly validate and implement the pretrial domestic violence risk tool. And a lot of these efforts are spent on reviewing validation and assessment literature on risk tool validation in general, and how we would undergo local validation and use proper sampling methods and tests for bias and other disparity. As far as other research projects that we're continuing, we're coordinating with AOPC and PSP in order to gain access to the data that's required to report on several different types of program evaluations. And these include restrictive conditions of probation, recidivism risk reduction incentive programs, state drug treatment program, state motivational boot camp, pretrial diversion programs, prison treatment programs, prison reentry programs, and local and county programs. So a lot of these evals are working kind of in conjunction together to kind of create a single database of recidivism to fulfill all of these, kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Now, in addition to these program evals, our postdoc scholar and graduate assistant have been working on researching the effects of consecutive and concurrent sentencing, as well as the effect of juvenile adjudication has on sentencing and lapsing. These projects will help us address our best practices as we continue to explore and consider our prior record score. We're also continuing to work on our data management tasks. As Christy mentioned, we are moving towards Power BI as a replacement for SAS BI as our interactive data portal. We've already incorporated it into a lot of our data analysis procedures to great effect. We've been considering and are starting to do initial designs on future dashboards that we'll use for our interactive data portal. And we're also working on, in conjunction with Power BI, creating not only publicly facing dashboards, but also internal reporting measures for criminal justice stakeholders. So we've been in contact with the Pennsylvania State Police, trying to update the format that we get for criminal history data, which could significantly help not only these program evals, but pretty much anything that uses some type of recidivism analysis. And we're waiting for an update on that format. And we've made significant progress in our documentation, helping organize our processes, our training, even our syntax that we use for coding our actual data. And we're continuing to consolidate a data library of all of our internal and external databases that we obtain from our criminal justice partners. So in addition to all these tasks, we're also continuing to supply data analysis reports and legislative impact analyses. This past quarter in particular, we've provided a significant amount of data analysis for consideration in legislative bills and other initiatives. And we've not only managed to produce a lot of these reports, which you can also find in the supplemental materials, but we've managed to improve a lot of our ad hoc reporting processes to increase our functionality and speed for filling a lot of these requests. And then finally, for staffing, the research unit is progressing and close to filling one of our research data analyst positions. That'll focus on assisting a lot of the database management I mentioned and data cleaning, and even do some of these impact analyses. But also, as Mark mentioned, this will be my last commission meeting. So I just like to take this opportunity to thank you all for the chance to work with you, as well as thank everybody from the commission staff. I'm also confident that the research and data analysis unit will continue to be able to provide meaningful research to the commission, since Brett Miller, who's our current research data analyst, will take over as interim unit manager to ensure a smooth transition with no loss of coverage. So with that, I'll turn it back for any questions. And again, thank you one more time.
Well, thank you very much for all that you've done for the commission. Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to Ryan with the education and research.
Thank you, Judge. So I'll start with just letting you know where the materials are. So if you're looking at the highlight section of the commission materials, the education outreach unit is pages 27 through 30, and that's what I'll be highlighting here, I guess this afternoon. If you want more details, you can turn to the supplemental materials, pages 60 through pages 135. What I'd like to focus on here in front of you is really two things, even though you see a lot more on the screen. The first thing is reporting and verification of 2020 sentences. And if you will, I'd like to reserve that for the second part of the discussion because it'll be a little bit more detailed. And then for the sake of time, and because we often report out on very similar things from meeting to meeting, really just lumping the rest of the bullets about SGS web support, monthly updates, our YouTube channel, the education outreach committee, and other activities into a space just to say, you know, there's a lot of things that this unit does from commission meeting to commission meeting that's really seamless. You know, these are activities that were continually going on from throughout the year. And instead of diving into the great details of it, I thought I'd pick up on a little bit of a theme that Mark mentioned earlier, sort of around staffing and returning to work and as we transition out of COVID. And I think the takeaway here is just that we've been full remote for the last 15 months. And I think we've done a lot well, and there's been great gains in what we've done. But we also are now going into a space where we no longer have just the option of full remote. And we have these two other options, as I see, for the education outreach unit, which is a hybrid format where we could be, you know, sort of in person and presenting remotely, and then also just in person totally. And the reason I mention that is to say, you know, if you look in the supplementals or even in the highlight material, you can see how many people we've reached just in the first quarter of this year in comparison to the entire year last year. And I think that's a testament to the ability to provide things remotely. But more recently, we have reconvened things like a legislative lunch and learn that was requested of the commission and the staff. as an in-person and sort of hybrid setup in the Capitol, and it's been welcome. And I've done, and Mark and I have participated in a few in-person and hybrid presentations in the last 2 months, and I can say that they've been welcome for me, certainly, and members in the audience. And so, you know, I guess the takeaway for all of those bullets are we're going to remain providing those remote opportunities for individuals, because we certainly have been able to communicate the commission's work to, I think, a broader audience throughout the year. But I think there's real opportunities for us to work with individuals again, whether it's in person completely or in a hybrid aspect. So I'd encourage you to take a look at the highlights and the supplemental material for the details around all the SGS web support and other outreach that we're doing. But I'd just like to go back then, if you will, to the reporting and verification of 2020 sentences. And I'm going to talk about this really in 2 ways. The first is just the effort of staff since the last commission meeting. And the second is some efforts that are sort of behind the scenes but are complementary to the reporting and verification. So the first part is the executive director, Mark, communicated to all counties, criminal court judges, president judges, chief probation officers, and district court administrators in the beginning of April about our engagement around reporting and verification of 2020 sentences. And we provided all counties with a lot of information about cases reported, cases not reported through some analysis done here at the commission. Subsequent to that memo to the counties, the Education Outreach Unit began its outreach in earnest with all of the counties as inquiries came into the commission about reporting. And we provide all of that staff support in, you know, helping counties enter sentences that aren't entered, helping counties understand their processes and maybe areas where they can leverage other individuals within their county to assist them in reporting fully. All of that information is provided to you in pages 70 through 77 of the supplemental information. And then we gave them a deadline of May 31st of this year to get everything in for 2020. And we've worked with counties. We provided a follow-up in mid-May to remind them of the deadline. And we saw a flurry of inquiries after that reminder. So it was a good thing that we did that. And I think we've taken away, as at least staff of the Education Outreach Unit, that counties are hearing what the commission is saying and really working towards this full reporting of information, which is what we've talked about throughout the last several commission meetings. So that's sort of one aspect of it. This other area that I wanted to talk a little bit about, and I'll ask Mark to join in as well, is just some supplemental work that you might not attribute to this, but it's certainly happening. I sit on the CAPPAC, or County Adult Probation Parole Advisory Committee in PCCD, who through JRI2, it was created. And one of the things that the CAPPAC is mandated to do is come up with a funding formula. And so not only do I sit on the CAPPAC, but I'm participating in a subcommittee for funding, for the funding formula. And that subcommittee is currently working through figuring out what a funding formula for county probation looks like for things like grant and aid, county intermediate punishment, and these other discretionary funds, which would be coming out of justice reinvestment savings. And so staff of the commission have been doing some ancillary work and supportive work for PCCD, that subcommittee, and members of that subcommittee through data requests and analysis to help, inform the decisions that are being made around the funding formula. And, to connect this, it's just important because as counties report all of their information, that's the information that the commission, that staff can provide to places like PCCD and others around, what's happening in Pennsylvania for sentencing. And without going back to JRI2 and the legislation and talking about all the factors, I think the commission has a focus when reviewing the legislation about reporting out on probation sentences for individuals in a given year and the general severity of those cases. So with that being said, I'll give Mark an opportunity if he wants to say anything more on that, because I know he's been intimately involved in that process as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I think Ryan's right. We've been partnering in a big way with PCCD and with the Administrative Office of the Courts and with the County Chiefs Committee to really try to figure out or provide the information that can be used for them to develop this funding formula. And it's difficult. Everyone recognizes it's difficult. One of the things that I think is really positive about the commission's data and information is that we are able to do a lot of analysis to try to translate individual offenses or types of sentences into sort of a body count. How many individuals received this type of sentence during this year? Like how many new cases were added to the caseload of probation and parole, to break that out by county and other things like that. The Administrative Office of the Courts, AOPC, through their Common Pleas Case Management System and their MDJ system, have really good information, but it's a case management system. It's not built around the idea of talking about how many new people came into the system or received a probation order this year. It's much more about how dockets flow and what happened during a given docket. And so, we, and especially Diane and Eric, have been doing a lot of work trying to help us to support the work of PCCD and the county chiefs in trying to come up with whatever formula they think works. But, nothing's easy. And I think we're still working at that. But I just wanted to raise, and I appreciate Ron giving the opportunity, because it takes a lot of work. And sometimes what appears on the surface to be like an error or a gap or something like that is really that some people maybe don't think about, how many cases relate to a given person. And when you're thinking about a person count, it's going to look a lot different than a docket count or an offense count or other things like that. So, fortunately, we have the capacity to provide that support, that technical assistance that we're supposed to by statute. But I can tell you at this moment in time, no one is really thrilled with any of the models that they've come up with. The other thing I just wanted to point out is that the JRI-2 legislation put a real premium on complete reporting to the commission. And Ryan and his staff have been really working to work with counties to make sure every case that's supposed to be reported to us is reported to us. And we've had some really good, I think, gains in that area. At the last meeting, Judge Tucker mentioned that there was a mandatory meeting for judges in Philadelphia where we gave a presentation about data and about, data management and SGS Web and all that kind of stuff, which, isn't often a mandatory meeting for judges, but it was, I think it was really helpful. We appreciated the exchange with the judges, and we've seen, Philadelphia courts really stepping up and trying to sort of think through the process and trying to improve the quality of reporting to us. And we've seen the same thing in other counties. So this is part of a whole process. And I just want to, thank the commission for the support, but also, a nod to Ryan and his staff, to Diane and to Eric and their staff, because, all of this is a really important feature of trying to provide good information that can be used for policy decisions. And I don't want to underestimate what we spent a lot of today talking about, and that is the work of Christy and her group, having an application like SGS Web that gives us the ability to collect the right information and do the analysis. So sorry for the sermon on data quality and the importance of this, but I just wanted to recognize staff for all the work they're doing in this area. Ryan?
Thanks, Mark. And I'll wrap up on that note as well, and sort of going around the thank yous. But in being brief, sometimes I may leave off some important things. And I just want to recognize the unit, the staff of the unit, far more than me, and the efforts that they've been going through this year. And just on the reporting and verification, there's a lot of effort expended, and rightfully so, in working with counties on sometimes just like individual case level basis, and getting information entered into the system. And then, more broadly, and just reviewing existing practices and trying to improve upon those. Other areas that are important is that the staff are assisting and collaborating again with PCCD on county intermediate punishment treatment plan reviews. And just to put that into perspective, there were 58 plans submitted this year, serving 61 counties. And so, while we may not have a responsibility in reviewing the entirety of each plan, we have been collaborating with PCCD. And when I say we, the education outreach specialists have, and they've been doing a lot of work on both of those fronts. And then just generally supporting, sort of what I see as our fundamental role in providing education and outreach and, responding to sentencing and sentencing related inquiries across the Commonwealth. So with that said, I'll turn it back to the judge.
Yeah, Ryan, if I could, just one final thing. Ryan had mentioned resuming the lunch and learn sessions that he provides for the General Assembly, which I thought was a real credit to him and to his unit in that they were approached to resume those. We have not done them for a year because of COVID. And we got a request from the parliamentarian to resume them because of the value they found in them. So Ryan responded. He's had 2 of them so far, and we're back on schedule. But that's a real credit in terms of thinking about, our host branch, the General Assembly, recognizing the benefits and asking for us to resume. But it was also, I thought, notable that we received a request from the Pennsylvania Superior Court to provide a presentation to them as well. And so Ryan and I had the opportunity to give a CJE session for the Superior Court recently on sentencing updates and on the sentencing guidelines. So it was, I think it was well received, and we really appreciated the opportunity to present to the Superior Court. So with that, I'll turn it back to the judge.
Thank you again, Ryan, very much, as well as Mark. Okay, for our policy support, Dr. Shute.
Sure, thank you. We start with page 31 in the highlights and page 136 in the supplemental. The first document is the bills passing one chamber on 137. The General Assembly has been very busy, so it's a little outdated. Some other bills have passed this week. But in particular, we have House Bill 184 and Senate Bill 87. House Bill 184 asks the Commission to develop an enhancement for causing or aiding suicide. It's 18-2505 and for a citation. The enhancement would apply if the victim is under age 18 or has an intellectual disability or is on the autism spectrum. Then Senate Bill 87 deals with child pornography or sexual abuse of children, 1863-12. Now, we do have an enhancement already in place for that for victims under age 13, indecent contact, and also based on the nature and character of the abuse or number of videos or photos. This enhancement is for victims younger than age 10, indecent contact, and a new element is if the victim and the offender know each other, if the victim is known or offender is known. It also creates a task force to look at any shortcomings in law or practices dealing with child pornography, and the executive director of the commission is one of those members. The annual report cycle continues. We are working on the 2020 version, and we're just waiting for the data to finish that up. And we've talked a lot about AOPC data. We get annual data sets on filings and dispositions each year, and we did get the 2020 data and formatted that. That is for the lower courts and common pleas, and it really plays an important role in our work, in the projections, in the judge verification and compliance, in analysis, impact studies, and research. So we can't underestimate how important that data is, along with DOC data. And as an example, on page 192 and 193, we backfilled the 2019 data for the certificate of compliance using AOPC data. It's a slightly different unit of measure, and it doesn't have all the nuances of OGS, so we have to really try to fit things together. But it does show how much that changes based on reported what's missing.
Hey, Diane.
Yes.
If I could just throw in a comment on that, just to clarify. So when we reported out on 2019 data, sentencing data, it was based on sentences reported to us through SGS Web. And because of that application, we have a lot of detail and can do a lot of analysis. But we know, and commission members know, that there are some counties that underreport their sentences for any number of reasons. And that's what Ryan's unit is working on, to try to make sure we have full reporting through SGS Web. What Diane did was to make sure that we could think holistically about all sentences. She looked at the AOPC common pleas data, found any convictions that weren't reported to us independently, and figured out a way to backfill those into our data so that we had a fuller view of the data. Now, there's going to be missing information because there's no prior record score. There's, we don't know exactly which conviction offense as far as OGS assignment, but it was good to sort of fill a void and to know generally what the profile of cases looked like during 2019. The other information that we don't have, because it's not required to be reported to us, are from the minor courts, so municipal court in Philadelphia or from MDJs. And there are plenty of misdemeanors and felonies, especially in municipal court in Philly, that are not reported to us. So Diane is able to obtain information on those cases separately that we can look at, not so much about the guidelines, but when we're doing things like projections and impact analysis, to think about that. Or when we're looking at the attrition of cases, what happens based on these arrests? What's the outcome that you'd expect? So AOPC is incredibly important, and we partner with them a lot. But the other reason I wanted to raise this is it gets back to Christie's discussion of SGS Web. How can you simplify and automate the process? Well, we already have a connection with AOPC that we can pull in information from their system on charges and on new convictions and on offender information. But we also pull in information from their criminal history so that we can help to automate our risk assessment. And you can imagine using that same kind of connection with AOPC to pull in all cases from AOPC, so that instead of our users going into our application and putting in an OTN to start a case, that we pull in all conviction offenses from AOPC and have those in our database. And then in those cases where, the court's playing by the rules, they add to that information by using our application. But if they don't use the guidelines, if they haven't, wouldn't have reported the sentence to us, we would still have that case in our data. So that's another way of not only simplifying it and making it easy for users to enter less information and taking full advantage of stuff that's in other systems like AOPC, but it also helps us to identify gaps without doing a lot of analysis because we have it built into our system. So this is like connecting a lot of dots, I know, but it's really important that we're thinking about all of these things of ways to have a more efficient and effective system. So thanks, Diane. Back to you.
Sure. I also wanted to mention that the Department of Corrections is working to implement a new risk tool. It's actually an RNR tool, strong R. And that's important to us because we use the LSIR, which is the current tool, in our proposed state parole guidelines. So once that's fully implemented, we'll take another look at our state parole guidelines, see if we need to do any changes. And then we'll probably have public hearings again on the state parole guideline proposals and the state parole recommitment ranges. I also wanted just to note that there's 2 articles in the supplemental materials that have been published. One was in the FSR, that's on page 195, and page 203, one was in Pactal. And Mark worked with staff and grad students on those articles. On page 194, there's a little correction to the sentencing guidelines. It was brought to our attention that we had a typo in a VUFA offense, 186106 F3. We have it listed as an A2. It's actually A1. So we've made all those corrections and they're on the website. And then Mark, I don't know if you wanted to talk about the letters from the DAs at all. That's on
Sure,
page
thanks, Diane.
148.
Yeah, I received a notice from the district, well, from 3 district attorneys actually, that dealt with a new offense called edazolum, and it is not classified, it is not scheduled in Pennsylvania under the Drug Act, but they're having experiences with it that they're really concerned about. And this is the sort of the northern tier. So it's Elk County, McKean County, and Cameron County. And so they each sent a letter to me, and you'll see they sent it to others as well about their concern about this and their interest in having this drug scheduled. And their preference is that it be scheduled as a Schedule 1 drug. We really can't do anything related to it under the guidelines until it is scheduled. And so I provided to you just to make sure that we're passing on the concern of those district attorneys and that you're aware of the issue. But we really, I don't think we can do anything in the guidelines until it is a scheduled offense, and then it would fall under the drug penalties provision, and then we could act on it. So this is a sort of an FYI for you, and you'll see that there's some detail on this. If you want additional information, I think I just put the letters, but there were attachments. I think I sent those to all commission members so that you'd be aware of it. But if you want additional information, let me know and I'll pass all of the documents I received from them on to you. So that's the issue of that. One other thing that I emailed to commission members recently was a copy of House Resolution 111. This was just introduced this week, and it deals with studying violation of the Uniform Firearms Act, concerns about gun violence, and requiring the commission to study this issue. So it's a House resolution. It was just introduced. It has not been adopted yet or approved by the General Assembly or by the House yet. I believe it's a single House resolution, so I don't expect it would need action in the Senate. It would just be a House resolution directing us to study this area. We've had resolutions like this before. It's the basis of when we studied mandatory minimum sentences, other things like that. So I think it's always helpful when the House or the Senate sort of prescribe a specific kind of study they're interested in. It helps us to sort of narrow the focus and to use our resources to answer questions for them. So we'll keep monitoring this. And if it's passed by the House, then we are already talking about how we can leverage our research partnerships to do this study and provide the report that's requested. So we anticipate that if this is enacted or passed, we have existing resources and capacity to do this study. We'll just need to partner with the Administrative Office of the Courts and the Pennsylvania State Police on some of the data issues. So with that, Diane, let me turn it back to you in case you had any additional or closing comments before turning it to the judge.
Nope, that'll do it. Thank you much.
Thanks. Okay, Judge, I think we've gotten through the agenda.
Okay, no miscellaneous, excuse me.
Yeah, I guess I can just mention the upcoming meetings. As we said before, we're scheduling a special meeting of the commission. It'll be a policy meeting, so that we can discuss the guidelines and sort of present the details of the guideline proposals. It'll be a full day meeting, Wednesday, July 7th. It will be held in the Urbis office building, so part of the Capitol complex. It's in room 523, which is one of the new hearing rooms in the Urbis building. And our office is just down the hallway. So we'll be able to, it's pretty efficient in terms of using that space for both the meeting and in case you need anything in the office. As usual with our meetings, if you need to come into town the night before, Kathy can assist you in making arrangements and to cover the expense for an overnight room nearby. We will be providing, coffee and donuts or whatever in the morning, and we'll provide lunch right there outside of the hearing room. So we expect it to be a full day, 9 to 4. And we also expect that we will be, streaming it, having, although it's a policy meeting, so we generally won't have public comment, we will make it open to the public. It'll be a public meeting to that degree, and we will have a Zoom webinar available. So that is all planned moving forward. I'll be asking Kathy to follow up with each of you to check on your availability to make sure we have, that all can attend or most of you can attend. We will tape it, so it will be available even if you're not there. And again, Kathy can help with any kind of logistics or overnight accommodations that you need. We'll be in person there, but we will have probably some staff connecting remotely. And if there's other resources we need, we'll connect that remotely as well. And then in terms of the remaining meetings for the commission, the quarterly meetings, our September meeting will be in Harrisburg. We do plan to have our regular format, so a dinner meeting Wednesday evening, and the commission meeting, policy meeting, and quarterly meeting Thursday morning. More details to follow on that. And for any individuals that are unable to attend in person, we will be live streaming and providing Zoom webinars. So that will be the addition. One thing I forgot to mention regarding the special policy meeting on July 7th, I think I agreed to bring creamery ice cream from Penn State down to the meeting. So, I'll be working with the chair and vice chair and Judge Tucker to identify, which flavors I'm bringing. But I think that's, I guess, an incentive to show up for the policy meeting. And with that, I'll turn it back to the judge and thank the judge again for chairing these meetings today.
You're quite welcome. But Tom, I guess I was referring to the September meeting. Is there a specific date yet on that?
Yes, there is. And I believe in the back of the materials, we have the listing that we posted. So it is September 8th, which is a Wednesday, would be the dinner meeting. I think we had advertised it as annual planning meeting, but I think it will just be a dinner meeting, but we'll work out the details. But definitely Thursday, September 9th, it will be the policy meeting at 9 in the morning, the quarterly meeting at 11 in the morning, and details to follow. We will also soon be publishing the special meeting so that there is notice, appropriate notice for the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Why don't I just double back to see if that the young lady or the person who were for the public comment ever showed up.
Do not see the person, Judge.
Okay, all right. All right, we'll note that it is approximately 12:45 or so. Is there any other business for the Pennsylvania Commission on Sentencing at this meeting? Hearing nothing, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Craig Dowling.
All right. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you for all participating.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Enjoy the summer.